Hello and welcome to Good Vibrations here with me, Phyllis Brown, your host. And once again, we're going to look at this friendship calendar that I've been given. And today's pause for thought, if you will, is because of you, I laugh a little louder, I cry a little less, and I smile a lot more. And it really got me thinking about those friendships that we have around us and the meaning that they have in our lives in relationship to who we are as people. When I think of that, I think there is a process where, for myself in particular, I tend to be my own worst critic. So I do criticize myself quite heavily. And I think that's a childhood thing where you were never, I was never good enough, not the brightest star, not the nicest star, not the best looking star. So it was one of those things that, just becomes ingrained into who you are as a person. But there's also that process where as we grow older, we forget that we are no longer that child. We are someone quite different. And that takes time and courage, and it takes a lot of energy to move ourselves into a new way of thinking. So it's really important to do that self-reflective work and to think about who you have in your life, who that person who does make you laugh, who does help you get over those really stressful situations that you need someone just to share. You need someone to share. I think we all must look at our own self-critic, be it real or unreal, because we can create these dramas within our mind. They may not necessarily be real. So we need to sort of think about, I'm being really critical about myself, but is it justified? Is it appropriate? And we need to look at that because other people around us may not necessarily see the errors of our ways of as we see them. And so one of the things I found very difficult as a young woman was taking compliments from people, accepting gifts from people. That I found that quite traumatic, really, because I was always told not to ask for anything. You're not going to get anything. So I was always given this sort of negative perspective of just sort of being in my box, not coming out of that box, and that was it. So as a young woman, when people would say really nice things to me, I would actually get overly emotional and I would just cry. When people say nice things, I would just respond by bursting into tears because I found it unbelievable. I found it unbelievable that someone would have something really nice to say about me, or they recognized something in me that I had never recognized. So I spent a lot of time in tears, and it took me a lot of courage and a lot of self-development work to start to see and to believe that what they were saying actually did relate to me, and that they were being truthful and honest, and that there was value to what they had to say to me. There was value in those things that they were saying. And I think that's really important because you need to you need to give these wonderful people who are supporting you the right to comment, the right to give you that understanding that it's okay to be good, or it's okay to be loved, or it's okay to be joyous, it's okay to ask, it's okay, it's just okay. You need to give them that right to say all of those things to you, because if you keep rejecting wonderful, nice, encouraging words that are being said to you, then they'll stop saying it. Because from their perspective, they might be thinking, well, there's no point in saying anything nice because they're just going to reject it. So when we reject things wholeheartedly or offhandedly, oh, don't be so silly. Oh, thank you, but no, that's definitely not me. Those phrases that we say really easily because we're embarrassed, we might be caught off guard, certainly might not believe it. So we'll say those things, we're pushing those words back. And watch your body language. I tended to go like this, wiping those wonderful words away, sweeping them away with my arm. And that in itself was quite insulting. So people, if you start behaving in such a way where you're rejecting, constantly rejecting these wonderful things that people are saying to you, then they will stop saying them because it's like their words are falling on deaf ears. And that's the sad part. We then diminish our own personal growth by developing a sense of acceptance, by developing a sense of grace, which is a wonderful attribute to have in your life, to have grace. And we stop believing in ourselves. We need someone to point out our great attributes and our wonderful things that we can share so that we can start going, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That was really kind of you. Thank you so much. So we start getting those confidence building moments in our life that make us feel truly valued. And that's the key thing. We need to value ourselves. So there's always a mirror and reflection going on, and that whatever we're reflecting out should be mirrored back to us. So if we're feeling good about ourselves, if we know what we're good at, and it's then being reflected back to us, that's confirmation. So one of the things that you need to overcome is your self-critical mind, your drama queen mind, the worst case scenario process. That's me. I'm a worst case scenario process person. So it's taken me a long time to develop not to think about that or to think in that manner or that way. And I think that you need to start to live in the moment, which is now. Do a self-analysis of who you are right now, today. Not the person you were last week or last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because your journey has been so long. The changes have been so incremental, tiny, tiny little changes. That frog in the pot scenario where the heat gets turned up just slightly, he doesn't notice that the water is getting hotter. So we need to look at ourselves in that perspective of, well, who was I? Who was I 5 years ago? What did I believe in? What was true for me then? But what is true for me now? That's the key thing. You need to really take on board all of your self-healings, personal growth, personal development, and create a sense of new beliefs that you can then reflect into the universe that will be reflected back to you. So we need to really take stock. I know for myself, I did a SWOT analysis just recently, a very old-fashioned tool, still valid, I have to say. My strengths, my weaknesses, my opportunities, and my threats. And I have to say, I'm an all four. So I have my strength, I am my biggest weakness, I am my biggest threat, but then I have an opportunity to change. So, you might find that you're in all four boxes, and that's okay. Recognize that, embrace it. Embrace it so that you can become the best person that you should be at this point in time. But what are your strengths? And acknowledge those strengths and own them. Own those strengths because you've created those strengths in yourself. And then what are your weaknesses? What can you do to develop those weaknesses into an opportunity or a strength for you? And what are your threats? Are they internal threats? Are they external threats? How can you deal with the naysayers or the people who don't support you? I think it's really key now that we all take responsibility for our behavior. So that means asking for forgiveness, saying sorry, doing all of that hard work so that we can keep clearing our energy and not get bogged down by the dramas that are going around us. I think it's also key that to create less stress in our lives, we need to be kinder to ourselves. We are our own worst critics, as I've said. And I think we need to start finding joy within ourselves, because if we can't find joy within ourselves, then how do we expect other people, especially those closest to you, so your partnerships, your family, etc., if we can't find joy within ourselves, then they will find it very difficult to find joy also. So I think it's really important that you find a way through this process so that you can enhance your life in lots of different ways. And coming back to that phrase that we started with, because of you, I laugh a little harder, I cry a little less, and I smile a lot more. Who is it? Who is your biggest fan, your biggest champion, if you will, that you can wholly trust 100%. And when they say something about you which is good and kind, it's a compliment, don't brush those words away. Embrace those words, bring them into your heart space, feel those words, believe in those words, because eventually you'll become that person that they see. And as long as it's a positive, more vibrant version of yourself, then that can't be a bad place to be. It can't be a bad place. So I hope you found this little jaunt into friendships of some help, personal reflection. I'm always keen to hear your thoughts, your words, and your feelings. So until the next time, take care for now. You've been listening to Phyllis Brown here on the Good Vibration podcast. Bye for now.